Welcome to another episode of Raging with Ron and Riccardo. And our guest for this episode is Dr. Dana Cheng, who has a PhD in physics and is a senior editor at the Epoch Times with 15 years experience reporting on China. Welcome to the show, Dr. Cheng.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure to have you on the show. And we wanted to get you on to talk about the Epoch Times that you work for as a senior editor and some of the stories that have come out that you've been able to publish about Wuhan, about China, and about the coronavirus.
Well, certainly. Epoch Times started in year 2000. Actually, I'm one of the founders. In year 1999, Chinese Communist Party started to persecute Falun Gong. It's traditional meditation. It was very popular in China. About 100 million people were practicing that. It has the principle of to be truthful, to be compassionate, to be tolerant. And Communist Party is afraid of anything that can gain popularity. So it started to persecute Falun Gong. And when they persecute, they fabricate a lot of lies, stories to defame Falun Gong and to have this day and night hate campaign in media. And in China, all the media are state-owned. In fact, even today, all the social media are state-owned. So no media, even the Western media, know the truth of what's going on. So they all recycle what communist media was saying. So my friends and I, a group of us, we decided, okay, let's start an independent Chinese media. And there's much need for Chinese people. And we all experienced Tiananmen Square crackdown. And we know how they lie again and again in the past 70 years. So we're going to start an independent media in Chinese for Chinese people. And immediately as we started, people from Tiananmen Square student movement, people who have been persecuted in the history for different reasons, they all came to us, gave us story lead, contribute stories. We became a platform for independent voice. So we grow very quickly and it started to distribute in 33 countries. In year 2004, a few years after we started the Chinese edition, we started the English because there are a lot of information about China has not been covered in English media. And very quickly, we have expanded to 23 languages.
And Dr. Cheng, have you faced pressure and even threats from the Chinese government as a result of your work?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly, they visit our family members inside China. And here, when some like a local business put advertisement on our newspaper, the consulate will give those business owner pressure. And our office in Hong Kong, there were people like broke into the printing shop. There were people trying to, actually a few months ago, to try to burn the newspaper. Yeah, a lot of pressure. In fact, our first group of reporters and editors in China, they were arrested. They have been sentenced anywhere between 3 years to 10 years. 2 reporters have been sentenced to 10 years.
So the pressure is high on your organization as a result of the reporting on China. And You know, Dr. Cheng, here in the United States, and particularly myself, you know, we're fairly ignorant, I think, in general, and fairly uneducated about the Chinese state and the government and the affairs of China. It has been fairly secretive in general. And then for us now, given the COVID-19, and I know that you're, you know, well versed there, you know, there's an interest and people are starting to try and understand more about China. I have a pointed opinion about it and I'll share it with you. And then I'd love to hear some more of your viewpoint. But I know, or I believe, and you can correct me, the only thing that the Chinese government cares about is being number one. It's culturally important to them in general and gaining power, whether that's through world currency, you know, innovation, technology, across the board. That's what's important to them. Would you agree with that?
Yes. It's because the Communist Party always feel a free world is a threat to them. You will be all right if another country to be number one, but it's a very civilized country, right? But right now, China is a communist regime. And communist regime, the whole system is not self-sustainable. It's like a cancer. So it has to expand, it has to grab good nutrition from other organs, from the free world. And you always feel that the value of the Western free world is a threat to them.
Because it's not just the Falun Gong that's been persecuted. Obviously, we've seen stories too about the Muslim population being imprisoned in camps. I know that they've tried to crack down on Christianity, and there was, you know, rings of Christians trying to smuggle Bibles into China. It's been a thing for a long, long time. It seems anything that isn't putting communism and whoever the leader of the party at the time is as number one is deemed a threat, even if it isn't a threat.
Exactly. Along the history of communist ruling, it has always picked a different group of people to persecute. When it persecutes a group of people, it shows to the whole country, like, you have to kneel in front of me. Otherwise, that's the example.
Now, in terms of the brand, I guess you would call it, of communism that you now have in China, from my understanding, is that back in the Maoist regime, it was very much a communism founded based on Lenin's principles from the USSR rather than Stalin's. And so for a while there was maybe some rivalry between China and the Russian state as it was then. Where is that now in terms of the brand of communism, if you like, that China has?
The nature of the communist has never changed. The communists used violence. It suppressed people. It doesn't put people's life first. It put its power at the most important place. Each year, the communist regime allocate more fund to suppress its own people. That fund called Weiwen. It's called social stability. It's actually the CCP's power security. It put more money on that, suppressing its own people, than the military. The military fund is already big. So it suppressed people, it destroyed the tradition, and it corrupt the morality in the society. It's a strange culture to come to China. In every country it has ruled, it failed. In every country it ruled, it has destroyed people's faith in God or Buddha. It has destroyed morality. It has destroyed the tradition. It's against humanity. And you always lied. You always lied. That's why they blocked the internet. If one day they are not afraid of truth, they would open the internet, but they live online.
What would happen, Dr. Cheng, if you went back to China tomorrow to you?
Right? They told my father they would take me away.
So with that then, and with the Epoch Times and the work that you're doing in New York, you've obviously been there for some time. How did you come across the articles that, or the information for the articles that you've published on the COVID-19 situation, the coronavirus, how it got out of Wuhan, and maybe how we're not hearing the whole story? Where did that information come from for you?
We have connections. We have connections. We have friends. Like I have a friend who family member work in the hospital in Wuhan, and of course, the culture, and we grew up there, and we have a lot of connections. We started reporting on the Wuhan virus December 31st, then January 1st, January 2nd. So we know that's very, very important for people to know before it hit the rest of the world. But unfortunately, not enough people understand our news, our reporting at that time, until like 3 weeks later, China started to lock down Wuhan.
So, Dr. Cheng, you're from Wuhan.
I
right?
grew up in Wuhan.
So that's important for us to note here. So give us an understanding of what you've reported on the virus and what China end game is, or what the purpose is, what your thoughts are about it, because this is the big mystery out there for the world right now, right? And you seem to have a lot of insight into it.
Right. First of all, CCP want to project the image to its own people and to the rest of the world that is very strong, is on top of everything, it can control everything. So when a virus is spreading, they were not thinking about, let's their first priority. Their first priority is to cover it, to control it, and so to save their face, to appear strong until it went out of control. Because there were so many lies in it, they would never allow American doctors to go in and find out the truth. Never.
Was it intentional?
Of course, intention, and that's what they will always do. Right now, it's a second wave, and it's in Beijing, and they are doing exactly the same thing as they did in Wuhan. People are running out of Beijing, just like 5 million people ran out of Wuhan, and people are flying to America at this time. Flights still fly out from Beijing to Los Angeles, while the rest of China are afraid of people coming from Beijing. They put them in isolation, but people are flying from Beijing to Los Angeles right now. Okay.
So talk about, before we go there, Dr. Cheng, if you will, give us kind of the perspective of the timeline of the virus, how it was orchestrated in your opinion, and how it started to become a global pandemic. And then let's fast forward to what you think the second wave might look like.
Okay, so it started sometime in November. And then the healthcare people start to realize there's something going on and it's serious. So they sent the virus to a few labs around the country to test. In December, the lab already identified that this is SARS, similar to SARS, and it's transmitting. And they even went to Wuhan and talked to people, but the official called those lab and say, destroy the sample, don't talk to anyone. They also shut down any conversation on the social media. 8 doctors pass information around and say, be careful, there's a SARS going on. Then these 8 doctors were taken away by police. So one of them died, as everyone knows. When they took 8 doctors away, that's January 1st. So it transmitted until it's too big to control. So January 20th, that's 20 days later. And then first time announced is people-to-people transmission. And 5 days before they locked down the city, there was a big party in Wuhan, and the official knew about that. That involved 40,000 families. Is a potluck. It's about 100,000 people involved. How deadly that can be. And that's when the official knew. Instead of alerting the people, they cover the truth. They try to cover. They try to control the information, not control the virus. And January 3rd, they already locked down the military college. They sent notice to all the military and locked down those military places because they want to protect the military.
So did the virus come from the wet market, Dr. Cheng, or did it come from a laboratory?
We don't know at this point. They have tested the sources, the market source from different vendors, and they couldn't find the virus. So somehow the virus was brought into the market. And according to medical magazine written by Chinese doctors, the first patient they treated had no contact with the market. So right now it's not clear. Again, this time, second wave in Beijing, it's not clear where it is from.
So what did they do on the first wave after, in your opinion, so the virus is now getting out of control in Wuhan, right? Because of the event and the things that have led up to there was some, unless I misunderstood, there was some intentional transmission of that virus outside of Wuhan to the rest of the world?
Well, when they block all the traffic between Wuhan and the rest of the country, the flight continue to fly out of Wuhan to other cities, other countries, about 60,000 of them. 60,000 of them. At the same time, they use all the companies and their staff and connections around the world to source medical supply, like a face mask and other supplies, and stock them. Other countries were happy to donate them to Wuhan, but it's very hard to reach the hospitals. Along the way, people start to take them out, and maybe for their own use, maybe for the officials and elite, and maybe stockpile them for future sale. So the hospitals were short of supply while they bought all the face masks and other supply from around the world. Early February, I was trying to find face masks in store here, while most of the Americans had no idea it will come here. I couldn't find the face mask. I was trying to send some to my friend. I couldn't find face masks in New York. I called my friend around the country. None of them could buy face masks. It's out of stock. And the same is true in Europe. So they bought entire world's medical supply and stored them in China. While people are traveling back and forth. It infected the rest of the world. When the rest of the world need them, it's short of supply.
Dr. Cheng, the official numbers out of China who have been infected and then have died of COVID-19. Infected at the moment, I'm looking, this was updated about 10 minutes ago, 83,265. Of that, 78,379 have recovered. Official death toll is 4,634. What's your impression of those numbers? Do you think they're accurate?
No, that's not accurate. In fact, in early February, we reported that the cremation center had been working day and night, 24 hours, just from what they are doing and the daily work in normal time. And that's the number should be at least 15 times what government published, at least.
Wow.
And we interviewed the people who was the director of the cremation center. That's only the cremation. There are people who may be buried. And then they shipped 16 big mobile cremation center. They don't call it a cremation center. It can burn 8 tons a day. So they can throw anything in it. So there are people who we don't know how their bodies were processed.
So based on 15 times more at minimum, you're talking around what, 60 to 70,000 deaths in China? Is that what you're sort of basically thinking it's around that sort of number?
It's absolutely world number one. So the number they gave is a scientific joke, because scientifically you have a certain curve, you have a certain peak. It need to make sense. This is a virus. It has its own way. So the number they put out is scientifically is a joke. So, and now when America got infected, and they are laughing at America. They say, see, we Communist Party know how to control virus. America is a mess. They repeatedly broadcast on TV what a mess America is. Like, Western system is a failure. China is a better model. That's every opportunity they are trying to repeat.
Dr. Cheng, I have relations in Italy,
Yes.
in northern Italy. They were locked down for a long time. Now, in northern Italy, in that part of the Lombardy region, they have a lot of the perfume houses, the traditional perfume houses, the Gucci's and the Pradas and the things like this. My relations there said that the reason that it seemed to the rest of the world, how did it go from Wuhan and not spread through the rest of China and then all of a sudden pop up in northern Italy, is because a lot of those perfume houses, the traditional big names, have been bought by Chinese companies, but so that they can keep the made in Italy on the bottle, they keep the production there. The chemists that make the perfumes are based in Wuhan, and the workers at the factories in Italy are brought over from Wuhan. And the outbreak in Italy coincided with the end of the Chinese New Year, when a lot of those workers who had been based in northern Italy had gone home and then come back. So looking at it that way, was this a controlled release by the CCP, do you think, or was this an accident?
That I think I want to focus on this. The more a place has a connection with Communist Party, the more that area will be infected. So if we study like different patterns, the place that understand the nature of a Communist Party and reject the Communist Party will have less infection. I give an example. Nowhere had more travel or tourists from China than Hong Kong and Taiwan. But Hong Kong and Taiwan had the least infection. They reject Communist Party. They understand the nature. So Taiwan, from the end of December, they send email to WHO. They prepared face mask production and everything, and they voted again. They voted their president based on their stand against the Communist Party. So because they understand Communist Party always lie, they are better prepared. And now Taiwan is the only place among the free world I know that had never closed down their economy, never closed down the school, and never closed down the restaurants.
Wow. So as it relates, you know, the burning questions for, I think, most of us here are, you know, was it intentional? The second wave, what does that look like? You know.
Okay, I want to add one thing. They don't care about the lives of Chinese people. Why should they care about lives of other people?
Right. Yeah, and it certainly looks like, I mean, when you shut the global economy down, you know, and that reaction based out of fear from the rest of the world to this is extraordinarily destructive and adds a tremendous amount of power to the Chinese regime because they are capable of manufacturing, hoarding, and then supplying solutions as well as potentially a vaccine.
When the world shut down the economy, they also shut down the import from China. So it's also a blow to China economy. However, because the world rely on China for medical supply, they sell medical supply like selling drug. They make more money from medical supply than trading drug. And it's crazy that we rely on a communist regime for most critical medical supply. We put our lives in the hand of communist regime. So the world was short of every item of medical supply. And I gave you an example. In February, China had bought all the face masks, 2 billion of them. Then in March, they sell back to the West, 50 cents a piece. Face mask is sold at $7, $8 a piece.
Big money-making exercise.
Well, that's like taking advantage of a wartime, right? And the intention is not to save people.
Now, just to be balanced on this, Dr. Cheng, we like to look at both sides of things. And I hadn't heard of your publication before, the Epoch Times. So I did a little bit of research on the Epoch Times through a couple of media outlets that do bias checks and things like that. And they seem to put the Epoch Times as an anti-communist party publication that has links to the right-wing politics, particularly in America. What's your take on that in terms of how it's depicted there in terms of that media bias fact-checking?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question. We are non-partisan, we're independent media. We don't support any political figure. But in this media climate, if we don't follow the narrative of the left media, they will call us right media. We don't consider ourselves left or right. Okay, so in regard to anti-communist, it's true that we know the evil nature of communists. We live fair for people to see, to understand. And if you understand the nature of Communist Party, you will protect yourself better. So some left media view us as if we have an agenda and we report things with an agenda. And that's wrong. We report critical information for the benefit of the public.
Thanks for clarifying that for us. It was just something that I found interesting as I did some research on your organization. So in terms of a second wave of COVID, you said it's hit Beijing. We haven't really heard much about that in the news over here. When do you think we will? Or will the CCP try to quash that altogether? Or will they say we've had a small outbreak and play down the numbers like they seem to have done with Wuhan?
Is repeating what's happening in Wuhan, it will be more serious. Right now, half the Beijing is locked down, and people are not allowed to travel into Beijing, and those inside Beijing are trying to run away. And for the rest of the country, anyone who had traveled to Beijing in the past months have to stay in isolation. So it's a very serious time. They shut down a market that is selling vegetable, selling seafood. That market provides for 70% of the Beijing population. It's bigger than the Wuhan market, it's busier, and it's more impactful. The vendors have to dump all the seafood and dump all the vegetables. It has a huge impact. Right now, the military hospitals are totally locked because it's full. And military colleges totally locked. They are so afraid it will get into the military system. And we don't know where the top communist leaders are. Maybe they are in Beijing, maybe they ran away, we don't know. So this is a big threat to the ruling of Communist Party now, is the virus. It's already been in crisis. They have a crisis in many different directions, okay? So the US and the China trade war that really put its economy in trouble. And then the Huawei ban really put its military in crisis because Huawei served as a military technology front. And then there have always been infight among the top leaders for the power. And Xi Jinping always feels threatened. And the natural disaster is the flood, is the virus, and there are other like insects and swan fever. There are a lot of natural disasters. So from every direction, there are crises. Now, this outbreak in Beijing will be a big blow to CCP's ruling.
What do you make of the way that the WHO have handled this situation? Do you think they've handled it well?
No. Actually, yesterday, WHO is asking Beijing to share the gene of the new virus. And they're trying to show to US, right? The first wave when Wuhan virus started, and actually Taiwan alerted them. They ignored Taiwan, and they basically want to say whatever Beijing want them to say. And Beijing is very good at corrupting international organizations. And this is not the first organization they corrupt. Although US gave 10 times more money than Beijing, they still listen to Beijing because Beijing corrupt individuals.
Right.
It's easier, it's less expensive. when they corrupt individuals, these leaders listen to Beijing, you basically pull the whole organization away. And stupid America and just keep putting money there. I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. So what do you make of President Trump's move to cut ties between the US and WHO then? Is that the right move, or that feels a little bit maybe maybe not the right move for me? Surely you want to get into an organization like the WHO and sort it out rather than just cut ties and let it be, and you'll effectively leave it to China.
Okay, so for an organization of WHO, it can help people, it can kill people if you delay the important information. So if you decide to follow the communist regime, you are going to cause more damage than any other organization when there's a pandemic going on. So I think it's right that Trump cut the tie until they reform.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, one of the things that's always been puzzling to me, and again, this is a bit of conspiracy theory that's running around in America, as you're well aware, I'm certain, is, again, going back to my original statement, which we don't know, was it intentional? You know, was it intentionally spread throughout the world? And then the people that it tends to kill more effectively than not are the people that have the most drain on society. So the elderly, the already weakened immune systems, the homeless, the poor, those people seem to be more susceptible to death from the virus than healthy, persons. And it's just interesting as a conspiracy, right, Dr. Cheng, that virus affects those people more radically than it does others. And those are the ones that drain resources from governments and society more rapidly.
If we look at the big picture, I would say that those who support CCP, those who have close tie to CCP, tend to get virus more. This area.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I would say I would use the Chinese wisdom, ancient Chinese wisdom. They are retributions. If you support the evil, it will come back to you.
Right. Understood.
All right, Dr. Cheng, thank you very much for your time. It's been very informative conversation, and wish you all the best with the Epoch Times going forward.
Well, thank you for inviting me. If your audience want to have a subscription, they can get on the website, and the paper can be delivered to their house.
And give us the website, Dr. Cheng, please, for our viewers.
theepochtimes.com. Epoch spells E-P-O-C-H. theepochtimes.com.
Very good. And I can't thank you enough for coming on and joining us and sharing your insight. I appreciate it very, very much. I hope you'll join us again. And I hope that we don't have another wave of COVID, but as we follow this journey, I hope you'll come back and see us.
Oh, yes, it's my honor to share information with your audience.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.